All right. I'm trying to get the attendee list up where I can see it too, so I can see hands. Welcome everybody to the July 18th BFRW committee meeting. Can we go ahead and take a roll call?
Roger Haringa.
I'm here.
Todd Byrether. Dan Young.
Present.
Angela Haupt.
Hands up. Did you see that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Katie Sheehan, I'm not seeing in the room today. Tom Handy, and he said he might not be able to unmute, but he is with us. And with that, we have a quorum, and we have one extra seat in case anybody has to leave.
Okay. Is there anybody from the public that would like to introduce themselves? I'm not seeing anybody from the public.
You got to click over to the attendees tab
sorry.
here, and so
Patrick is here.
Oh.
Patrick, go ahead.
Patrick Kings with the Building Industry Association of Washington. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I'm going to call that good. There are a few other folks. You can raise their hand if they want to be recognized. So moving on to agenda item 2, review and approve the agenda. If I could have a motion in a second, and then we can discuss.
I move that we approve the agenda.
Thanks, Dan.
I'll take second then. Todd.
Thanks, Todd. Does anybody have any questions, comments about the agenda? I'm trying to keep my eye on everybody, so I'm not seeing anybody. So I am going to ask for everybody that approves the motion to say aye.
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 Okay, I think we got those aye votes. And anybody opposed to approving the agenda? All right, agenda passes. Agenda item 3, review and approve the minutes. Dustin, if you can bring those up. I actually have questions, comments about item number 5, but I think that you need to show it on the screen and page through it so we can have a record of it.
You'll be seeing on the screen here.
So when you get to embodied carbon proposal number 5, this is a challenge that I think we sometimes have at our council meetings is motions are made and they're not written down. And I would like some clarity. I believe that the motion, and there was discussion about this, which is partially why I would like to go back and review the recording. The move to not adopt, I believe, should be moved to recommend to the full council that it not adopt. And I say that for 2 reasons. Number one, I believe that was the motion that was made, and at least the after some discussion. Number 2, I am not actually sure that the BFRW committee can do the final not adoption. I think that it can make a recommendation to the full council to not adopt. And I thought that was what happened. So
I would agree with that one.
okay.
And Katie's here in the attendees. Let me promote her real quick.
Morning, everyone.
Hi, Katie. Tom, your hand is up.
Yeah, I was just going to say, since I made that motion, I believe you're correct technically that, this committee cannot 100% vote not to do it. It can just vote to not recommend. So whether or not I said it exactly that way, that should be the outcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. And then I actually think that the last paragraph should be something like Todd and I both agreed that further discussion would need to occur at the July. I'm not sure if that needs to be in there. It can be. Further consideration would be, I don't know, the terminology there doesn't seem quite right. Consideration by the full council would occur at the July 25th council meeting. And then get rid of, I think, need to, just that it would occur. And that's actually the July 26th council meeting. We need to look at all of the work product that we've done. And then, Dustin, I am curious, I had hoped that at this meeting, we would have a list. There were a list of 3 or 4 proposals that we considered. We've been focusing so much on the EV charging and the embodied carbon proposal, at least recently. There was the mechanical one that we passed or approved or moved on, correct?
Yes, sir.
Were there any more?
Those
Then
were the
we-
only 3 that were handed back down from the council to this group.
Okay,
And then
want-
the static dampers one from the mechanical code went back to the council and was approved towards CR 102. The specific meeting date I don't have handy right this moment.
okay. I just wanted to make sure that we had all of our business covered and recommendations are made to the council. Okay, those are my comments. Are there any other comments with the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
I don't think we have a motion on the table for
Oh,
that.
I'm sorry.
I motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Thanks, Dan.
This is Todd, I'll second.
Angela.
I think I heard Angela second it. Any further discussion? Thank you for the catching that. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, thank you very much. So the next item is the EV charging. And Todd, so my understanding is the EV charging has gone through much consideration. I think we have arrived at a solution that does better define, it clears up definitions. And also addresses the percentages in the table 429.2. So Todd, if you are able, can you just walk us through the current red lines, and then our goal for today is to do a final approval of this and send it on up to the State Building Code Council for consideration for CR 102.
Sure. So in the last, I believe the direction was to bring the table back to the original format, with the exception of the parking, striking parking, and other things that were already in the proposal. So I did that, and then I handed it to Dustin. We divided the effort, and the second question was that Dustin helped here. Thank you. Is to compare the definitions that. Well, first of all, we'll look at this, and then let's get up to the definitions next. Maybe does everyone understand what was done here? That a lot of the red is simply changing the definitions as we agreed a while ago, and then keep striking parking out of, and then the main changes, obviously the major changes in the table were the 10, 10, 40. So if that looks correct to everyone's expectation, the second question then was the definitions. And so Ken, you're on here. Ken made a good recommendation to make, compare to the NEC definition. So Dustin up above. I'm talking about definitions already.
Yeah.
Oh, can you
and
scroll up,
I
please? Go ahead.
well, I had on my notes from this one to also look into the IECC definitions.
Well, what you have listed as IBC is a blend of actually IBC and IECC.
Gotcha.
IECC as proposed, but mainly by Patrick.
Right, I went and
Patrick,
looked through
check
that
us if
text as
that's
well, and I
accurate.
did not find any of these definitions within that specific text. So I don't have any sections here for the IECC. And then what I have displayed here, anything that's in red is added to the draft, and the highlighted sections highlight the differences in the definitions between the two code texts.
Okay. Patrick, maybe we lost Ken.
Um,
So all that look correct to your understanding and recommendation? Maybe we
I'll
can
be
bring
honest,
Patrick-
I haven't looked at it. This is Ken. I haven't looked at it since it was just presented.
No, it's
so-
okay. It's okay. Just giving you credit for the recommendation.
Yeah, no. Okay, thanks.
Patrick, go ahead. Your hand is up. You need to move him over as a panelist.
yeah, I got him covered.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, I think it looks like the IBC definitions match the IECC appendix definitions. So are you just going through and trying to pick which definition you want to use?
I believe so, Patrick, and I will insert a personal opinion, which is I would suggest we head towards the I codes because that's what everything else is based on. If there is a difference, I think because this is we are adopting a portion of the I code with amendments, I think we should lean towards the I code definitions if there is a conflict or so. But yes, I think that's what we're asking to do.
I concur with that, and in my opinion, I think the definitions are close enough that electrical inspectors will know what, and the electrical side will understand what the I codes are referring to.
I did have one thing I'd like to point out in one of these definitions, which is a change we made to the electrical vehicle supply equipment. In the NEC definition, and this is a change we made as well, we changed personnel to personal, and I think that should stay as personnel protective equipment or protection system, sorry. It's probably semantics and not a huge difference, but it's just an edit we made to the definition there.
That's why I am a math major and not an English major.
I don't remember when and why that was changed.
I don't have a track on that one either. I just is definitely a difference in there. The strikeout in black is a change from the model code definition.
I think this change is to align the current code definition with the IECC definition, and I'm looking at the two, and it looks like what's on the screen matches what's in the IECC. So the differences are between the IECC and the NEC. To me, it seems fairly semantic differences. I don't foresee any big issues going with the I codes one.
I would agree with that. If the ICC code, if the I codes have personal rather than personnel, then let's go with that. That would be my recommendation.
The definitions are different. Personnel is a noun describing a group of people who follow orders, usually at a company. So it doesn't include the general public per se. So personal is probably a better word.
Yeah, I agree.
And when you talk about PPE, it's always personal protective equipment, so, I don't have any, real, disgruntlement over that.
The one definition that's not in the ICC that got added is the raceway definition. And if we're pulling that directly in from the NEC, I think it'll need to be changed a little bit because the NEC definition references that code, and that doesn't make sense if you're putting it into the I code. But I don't know if we've gone this long without a definition for raceway, then it's probably, I don't think it'll be the end of the world if it doesn't get included, but
Todd, go ahead.
Yeah, well, and if I remember correctly, Ken, this is the one why we're talking about this. The other ones we kind of did a correlation just to check, but this is the one that was flagged. And the reason I think I maybe proposed this a while ago was our definition for capable is stripped down a little bit from I think what the IECC probably, because we're trying to bring that just down to basically the the conduit and so forth and establish what that is. And that's the raceway. But please check me if I'm
Tom, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just curious that of metal or non-metallic materials is highlighted in yellow. Is that to be stricken?
It's
Or
just
what-
highlighting the
add-
difference. So,
What's that?
so the difference there, I do believe that this one lines up with the IBC definition. Or no, that's what we added, I'm sorry, and I probably have it incorrectly labeled as an IBC definition. But this is, the highlighted section is the difference to the NEC definition.
It seems to me that that could just be stricken because of metal or non-metallic, they kind of cancel each other right out. So it can either be metal or not metal. So why even say it?
Good point.
I agree with Tom on that one.
Yeah. Patrick?
it does look like Todd is right. We did change the definition for EV capable. So if we're going to include the raceway definition, I think if we just strike that with additional function as permitted in this code, since that in the NEC is referencing it's that code, and I don't know if it makes sense for the I codes, but I'm happy to hear if somebody else has a different perspective. Thank you.
Do we have agreement to get rid of metal or non-metallic materials? I
yes,
think.
unless there's a
Yes.
definition of channel or something that somebody concerns someone, but I agree.
Okay. Now there's the question of the with additional function as permitted in this code. And
Are there any?
I don't know.
Roger, can you repeat the?
I'm sorry, Todd?
I just missed what your question was.
The question is, Patrick raised the question, should we get rid of with additional functions as permitted in this code? Are we really trying to say for future, should we say what it is a raceway for a future EV, and we can use what the correct definitions that we've come up with? I mean, that's what we're saying, right? We're allowing them to put any type of conduit specifically for future use for an EV charger. Is that, I'm not a proper code writing person, so I'm not sure if that's proper code language, but Todd?
Well, I think you're seeing it right there. It's just reference in other definitions in italic there. And we just want to make sure we are intentional about this, especially this EV capable, since that is different. So let's make sure we're all comfortable with that. And then that's why raceway needs to be clearly defined, in my opinion. We want to be clear that we're not, what we're at, what the code is asking for.
Okay,
Would it make sense to change the word permitted to specified? If it's directly referencing, the definitions.
Forgive me, I think I'm not tracking which definition we are actually talking on at the moment.
Yeah.
Raceway.
Well, I think my opinion is because with additional functions as permitted in this code is coming from the NEC, that we don't need it in ours. It's basically just saying that this is a thing that holds wires or cables, and that's
Mhm.
it. Because we aren't going to have anything else, I don't think, in our code about additional functions. That's going to be an electrical thing, and what I know about electrical is you do it wrong, it hurts. That's about it. So, I don't want to get into that part of that. I think Patrick is correct in that if we just end it with a period after bus bars, it defines it, and then we're good to go.
And I agree when I look at that and the EV capable space at the same time. I think those two definitions, by getting rid of it, I think it's pretty clear. Tom?
Yeah, I support that. We just have to remember that we're putting this in chapter 2, I believe, right? So we're putting it in the whole code. So as long as everybody's comfortable with that, that's.
I'm gonna also suggest or remind everybody, I'm comfortable with that. This is gonna go out for public comment. If the wording of raceway causes problems elsewhere in the code, I'm assuming that would come up in public comment, and we would then have the ability to address that prior to CR 103. So I like the way we have it, and I think that cautionary comment that Todd had is appropriate, but I think we can deal with that after CR 102. So Dustin, I think also for the record, I would ask you to go up through and start deleting the NEC definitions on I'm assuming you have it saved.
Yes.
What was presented. So this might be revision 4 if we call that, but yeah, let's get it where this is the version we're approving. And can I, in the actual document, the rationale will not be in there, is that?
That's my intent. This was just for
Okay.
our discussion, unless anyone feels they want the rationale in there. I didn't write that with the intention that actually would be in the code.
I just do comment that we've had is we're doing a whole lot of work here, Todd. Have had about various things, and making sure we go back through and have the rationale identified so that in future we can look back and can say, why did we do that? Is a good thing. Katie, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say that I really liked it. I mean, it reflected the conversation and sort of all the, like why we're making some of the choices that we're making. So I don't know. I know it's not probably something that we can include in a CR 102, but
It would be included in the CR 102, but not as a indication of this is what the code text is. There's a section of our CR 102s that indicate that has rationale statements in there. And
That's
so it's something we would try to include in that section.
yeah. Okay. Well, in that case, I think it's great to keep it.
Yeah, I was going to agree. I think keeping it in what the BFRW approves, and then that rationale will then get included in the CR 102 documentation, so. Todd?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I put it in there because it was helpful just to me to remember, and so I don't know in the future whether it can stay in whack and maybe doesn't get included in codes or vice versa, whatever. I'm okay with leaving it in.
Angela?
Yeah, I agree. I like it just for a quick reference. I also had a quick question. Sorry, I've been kind of having to bounce between things for the last few minutes. On personal and personnel, where did we land on that?
To leave it as personal.
So AL?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Okay, so that's kind of chapter 2. Can you, for me anyway, move down to the section 429? The dwelling units change is just because it's defined, right? Our
Just
definition,
italics.
that's this code language. And I would ask, I think, Todd, I'm curious about exception 2.2 of 429.2. What we are saying is one of each, and I remembering that Micah had a reason why we kept 2.2. And that is that there is kind of a minimum number of stalls that are, but the way I read this, one of every, if you have 200 parking spaces, you have to have at least one EV ready and one EVSE. Is that correct? Is that in the intent of what?
Yep. It's sorry, Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that's how it is today. And what I heard last time was this would require a code change proposal to change. I agree. I have concerns that this meets the intent of the statute, but it's in there and no one this time around proposed to change it, to my understanding.
Okay. Dan?
So I just have a question on that. That's been bothering me. It says one of each 200 parking spaces shall be EV ready. So if you only have one parking space, it has to be EV ready and it has to be EVSE because they both say if or a fraction thereof. So if you only have one parking space, what does it have to be? Does it have to be EV ready or an EVSE space?
Go ahead, Todd.
I have the
I
same
know I'm
question.
getting into semantics, but you know what I'm
No,
saying?
Dan, I have the same question. This is always
Yeah.
confusing. So
Yeah.
I don't know how it's enforced.
Okay. I don't know. I guess if you put one as one or the other, does it really matter? You
I
know,
was at a new Home Depot the other day and noticing how they were marking stalls, EV ready, and my code mind was confused.
okay. I'm not the only one then. Okay. That I feel better, but it's just one of those things where, as you do this a long time and you enforce things, how do you enforce that? You know, so, but I think that's something, like you said, when we go to the Sierra 102 and stuff, people can bring that up.
Dustin, so Todd, you're saying one of each, and I just pulled up the 2021 Washington State Building Code.
And check to make sure I didn't accidentally delete something because
Yeah.
let's confirm that I
It
did this
looks-
correctly first, and the only changes I made were for definitions.
It looks like it to me.
Give me 1 moment. I'll get them pulled up side by side here. I think the changes, there's changes there, but they're not, they align with our definition changes. And I think clarify a little bit.
Well, I'm fine with it now because, you know, it was in there and people weren't asking about it from before. So there's the definition change is fine.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I've been reading and not.
Oh, it's okay.
Go ahead.
I agree. I mean, we're just making the definition change here. I do think this is a topic area, and we brought it up at the legislature last or 2 weeks ago that someday this would be a good topic for the council and the legislature to clean up.
Okay. Can you, I'm looking back at the EVSE. That is, am I correct that you have an EV ready space and then you plug in the EVSE and that is a EV charging space?
I believe so. Yes.
Okay. So basically what that says, Dan's question about it's saying both, which I agree doesn't quite make a lot of sense, but the way I read that, it basically says you have to have an EV charging space. You have to have one. That's the EV ready plus the, well, yeah, I don't know. They're just saying you have to have the equipment plugged in. Go ahead, Tom.
I have a question on exceptions number 1. When I was just reading that, I'm confused whether or not it says, except for group A, pause, group E and M on-site parking with less than shall not be required to comply. So A does, or except for group A, E, and M occupancies, it doesn't apply with less than 10. The wording to me makes it confusing when you have the phrase except for group A. So what's the intent and where should we land on that?
Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I wasted a whole Saturday trying to answer that question, Tom.
Oh,
And that's what I was trying to address just through understanding it better with those proposals. But you know, obviously I agree, like it was starting to be pretty significant changes to the whole section that probably wasn't the question in front of us right now. But I have the same question.
So which is it supposed to be?
The
All
way
of the
I read it-
above?
The way I
Or-
read it, Tom, A, E, and M occupancies only need to apply to the designated employee.
Why do we have, then would it make sense to make it more clear, at least for me, it would, if you just deleted the word except for because it's already an exception? I mean, grammatically, it would be more clear, at least, I think,
I don't know.
if you
Angela,
struck
I'm gonna let
except
you,
for.
Angela, go ahead and,
What it's, yeah, no, you can't remove the words except for, because what it's saying is anything but A, E, and M, if they have less than 10 parking spaces, then they don't have to comply. So basically, the exception is that it is for everything but A, E, and M. Because if it was except for group A and then saying group E and M need to comply, then you would remove the word except group A, because then it would just be saying group A, E, and M occupancies. But what it's saying is every occupancy except those 3. If any occupancy except those 3 have, 10, less than 10, then they don't have to apply. But A, E, and M always have to have it, even if it does apply, because the A, E, and M are the ones that it only applies to staff parking.
Okay,
Okay, well, I'm glad I don't have to interpret that somewhere else. But thank you.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's basically because what it's basically saying is if for AE and M, if you've got 10 employee spots, you still have to have EV. Is kind of what I think those two together say. You
Well,
see what I'm saying?
that was much more clear. Yes, thank you.
Probably not, but just nod and smile and maybe I'll move on. Yeah.
it helped, when Angela says it, it makes sense to me. But when I read it myself, I get confused, so. Okay, I have one more question about the group R occupancies. So buildings that do not contain more than 2 dwelling units have to have 2 EV-ready spaces. So if I have 2, so that is, there are 1 or 2 dwelling units, I have to have 1 or 2 EV-ready spaces. The way I read this. And also if I have a dwelling units with a private garage, I have to have 1 EV-ready space. And is that the way the current code is? And I just pulled up the 2021 code and that is. So I guess I answered my own question, but and that's not a change from that code. Angela, your hand is up. I don't know if it's a straggler or.
Yeah, I sit for that. Yes, I think that is current code. And basically it's saying for, each unit, you have to have it. The second one for the dwelling units with private garages, that's addressing townhouses basically is what that's gonna address is when they have their own individual garages, each garage has to have a ready space also. After that, I still have a question on the main body up there, and it's still that question between the required and provided. That I don't know if anybody wants to address that, but I would when we're ready.
Go ahead. As far as I know, we're down to final on that. So let's talk about that issue. Can you remind me where it is?
It's right above the exceptions. It's the last line of 429.2 where it says table shall be applied to the number of spaces required for each occupancy. And as someone who enforces this, I still have a huge issue with that. And I'm pretty sure that the legislation actually says provided. But the problem is, and I've spent the last couple of days at our big WABO meeting and talking with jurisdictions like Spokane that don't require parking at all. Their zoning and stuff. And they actually are concerned because they have no mechanism to require EV spaces. Because it's not so they're like, I mean, we can't tell them that they have to do it. Again, that makes EV charging stations market driven also. The other places in the code, like the accessibility, they're based on number of spaces provided for each occupancy. And I understand that the required is so that if they do a bunch of extra spaces and things, that they're not being penalized, but it's kind of the precedence. And so aside from like not having zoning requirements, my issue is also our code does not actually anywhere in it require parking. So by saying spaces shall not, or number of spaces required, you could take that as, okay, we're in building codes. We don't monitor the zoning codes. So we're not actually requiring any spaces. Therefore, we don't have to require any EV. That is an actual, in my mind, legit interpretation of this for the jurisdictions that don't want to be enforcing this code in the first place, to take it as a loophole. So I'll get off my soapbox, and that is just my opinion.
Todd,
Yeah, I support that we make that change and file it for public comment. I'd rather see it in there for comment than not.
Patrick,
I think that required that you have highlighted is referring to the number of spaces required in the table. I think the issue that you're talking about needs to be solved in the charging language of the entire section, saying that the requirements apply to parking that is provided.
Dustin, for me, can you go back to a single screen so we can just see the new version? I can't.
That section, though, that sentence says that the table shall be applied to the number of spaces required for each occupancy, not required for, let me see, shall be applied to the number of spaces provided for the occupancy, for each occupancy, not shall be. Yeah, it's basically telling you what the number of spaces to use in determining what is required by the table is that sentence. It's basically saying that you need to break it into individual occupancies is what it's saying.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, because I don't think the charging language doesn't tell you that I don't think anywhere in this section, I can look back, that any of this applies to the required or provided parking. This is just telling you, it's clarifying that you should be, you know, if you have a mixed use building, that you should be breaking up your parking into what, you know, the sections that are applicable, not just picking one.
Sorry, I'm reading again. Todd, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I understand both points there. I have to think about it more because in some ways the required could be in the charging and then the provided should be in the last part, but okay, I'm gonna think for a second here.
Patrick, go ahead.
What do you do if you have a building that has mixed occupancy? So you've got apartments and some shopping space or whatnot, and it has a shared parking lot with the intention that people in the apartments will be staying the night, but during the day that parking space gets freed up for the shopping. So there's no separate distinction for the most part between the occupancies. It's just shared parking. This is one issue I tried dealing in, I think, an earlier revision that got decided it was out of scope of this project based off feedback I was hearing from builders, confusion about how this stuff applies to mixed occupancy, and trying to make that clear. I'm not certain this is a problem that we can solve today, but I can try to come up with a solution and submit that during the public comment for final adoption.
Yeah, in that instance, as the building official, I would normally go with the most restrictive. But I can see how it's something like that, where it is straight mixed, where the zoning is silent and they're basically, you know, leaving it up to market driven. And so they're not making them identify what parking is for who, that it would be left up to interpretation. And again, it would be which one you want to go with, except that if you've got, the problem is there, if you've got, I guess if you've got shopping and residential, you'd go with the residential because otherwise, because there aren't any of it required for the shopping.
Todd?
So it kind of takes it out. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think these are good points. I mean, if we have a jurisdiction or jurisdictions that are asking for consistency here, I think it's probably best to file provided, and then Patrick, to your point, let's make sure we're not creating some unintended consequence here.
I would agree with that. And Dustin, if you could bring up RCW 1927-540, it does say in 2A, the second sentence, except as provided in B, the rules must require electric vehicle charging capabilities at all new buildings that provide on-site parking. And then it says where parking is provided. So I think provided, that change that is highlighted in yellow, provided rather than required, I think aligns more directly with the RCW, in my opinion, not being an attorney. But I agree, I would suggest we keep it as, we change it to provided. And then Patrick, during public comment, if we understand that there's a question or concern, if there is a way that we can bring that up during public comment, we can look at it then. Tom?
I wonder if we were to further change provided to assigned, that might clear up some of the confusion that was just talked about who gets the parking spot when.
Angela?
Yeah, I think assigned is just going to create more confusion. Again, assigned by who, and again, for shared, when it's partial and partial for this situation that you're talking about, like he specifically brought up, one of them requires no spots and one of them requires spots. And so that one is a little more clear cut, I would say, for the building official as far as that goes. But again, assigned is basically saying the same as required, because who's assigning it? It's not our code. So in my opinion, I would definitely encourage Patrick, though, to bring it up at public comment, because if we can get, a bunch of, more opinions and things and maybe ways to clarify or fix it a little better, then I think that would be really helpful. Because yeah, I'm not about making it harder on developers, but I do want it clear, sort of a little more clear for enforcement too.
And my comment, Tom, on the assigned piece is that changes all the time. I know our parking garage in our office, the assign, seems like every week I look for a spot that I usually park at and, oh, that's been assigned to somebody different. So that's pretty hard to manage.
Yeah, I was just thinking more when there's mixed use with residential, a lot of people won't rent if they don't have a guaranteed spot.
Yeah.
At least from my experience. And so those would be assigned to the residents and others assigned to or left open. But I don't know.
Okay. I hear a general consensus to change it to provided. And I think, and then I'm going to ask Katie, go ahead.
Sorry, maybe this is kind of a question for Angela. I mean, I feel like when you pulled up the RCW, it made it a lot more clear that provided is a good option. You can't have, in the mixed use scenario, which we were looking at this in Spokane, in an area and looking at designs, and it's like, it seems like it has to be residential because that's the highest. I mean, in this case, in the example that you gave, that's the highest level. It can't be anything. If you want residential, it has to be to that level. And then anything less, you know, if you want to mix and match, it works, right? I mean, so the most restrictive. And so I guess the question is like, would you go to the RCW for clarification in that scenario, Angela, where there's
In
some lack of
actual,
clarity?
you mean like when we're actually working with the code and enforcing it?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah.
There is, I mean, and I say that because nobody knows it exists. And
Yeah.
people, code officials don't even, all of them don't even necessarily know what the WACs are. Basically, you're given a book, you have the inserts or the amendments in there, and that's what you're going off of. So there's no clarification as far as go to the actual RCW unless you're, you know, someone in a position like I am that you know what they are. So unfortunately, that's why we need to make the actual code language as clear as possible.
Right. Well, this now mimics the RCW, which I guess for me clarifies it more, but I don't know. I'm also looking at it quite carefully, but I think it'll be interesting to see what public comment is.
Okay, I'm gonna ask for any other questions or discussion that we want to have. And if not, I believe we are ready for a motion to move this along to the full council to forward it into the CR 102 process. Todd, go ahead.
I guess you made it. So moved.
Second.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Todd. Is there any more discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I
Any opposed? All right. Good work, everybody. This one was, oh, Patrick, if you wanted to comment, was,
I was just gonna say, you know, thanks everybody for working on this and thanks for listening to stakeholder feedback and getting that incorporated in, trying to address some of those issues. So thank you so much.
thanks, Patrick. I think it's, there's a lot of work that went into it and it's a really good product. It does, much clearer and addresses, I think, I don't want to lose sight of the discussion at the bottom about how we calculated what we think are the right percentages. So, and the adjustment to the table, I think we've set the council or the council up for a methodology for addressing it in future cycles. This is what we looked at in the 2024 code cycle, and something we can look at, 3 years from now. So, Tom.
Yeah, and thank you also, Patrick and others, for all the effort on this. And then reminder that one of the things we were asking for public comment was if that is the methodology we want to move towards, which is what we're proposing. I'll leave it to Kathleen and others if there's updated models before we would adopt in October, November. And the models I'm referring to would be from the Northwest Power and Conservation Council. So just keep that in mind and keep an eye on it for future discussion. Okay, thank you.
All right. I am going to suggest a 5-minute break, and then we are going to be ready to dig into the IRC amendments report and significant changes report.
Roger, last time we did 5 minutes, we needed the 10 minutes.
All right, let's do 10 minutes. At 10:05, we will reconvene, and Angela will be ready to start jumping through your documents. Okay, I'm back. Sorry, I got a message right as we were coming back. Okay. We will call the meeting back to order. I see most of us are back. Certainly we'll double check to make sure we have a quorum before we take any official business. But we are on to agenda item number 5, the IRC reports, both the existing amendments and significant changes. And Angela, I am going to let you present them. Because I think the order of business for us is to forward these back to the State Building Code Council. Can you remind us, Angela, where we're at in the process, I guess?
This is the start. This is the first I've seen these. So I think Dustin.
Yeah, it might be better if I present and
Okay.
kind of
Yeah.
and lead us through this one. So the IRC reports are the reports are typically the beginning of the process, and we're struggling to get these ones written. So we opened up the proposal window prior to these being complete and approved by this committee or the council. And so there's some blanks in the reports as far as recommendations by the committee or the tag. And this is all pretty much based on the existing amendments. If there's been model code changes to sections that have existing amendments in them, for the most part, those changes in the model code are recommended by staff to be incorporated into the existing amendment. And then for the significant changes reports, we're typically only seeing indications for changes there where existing amendments exist. And so kind of relying on proposals to make further changes there. And it was my thinking that we can review these today, recommend them to the council, and then as part of the tag work to review the proposals received so far, or not so far received, that we'll look at the reports as well and not identify new sections, but work with the sections that are interfacing with our existing amendments to make sure the language from the model code works well in those sections. So I guess to lead off, these are pretty large.
Dustin, if I can just be clear, so what we're doing is we are moving this up to the State Building Code Council. The State Building Code Council will then on next week say, okay, here IRC tag, here is the official these documents along with all of the proposed
Proposals.
code amendments, and that's the work they need to do.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so the significant changes report is quite a bit longer than the existing amendments report. I'm going to run through the existing amendments report, and then as we go through significant changes report, there's some sections in there that point back to the existing amendments report, and we can kind of flip-flop between them, but we'll start with existing amendments. And so give me a moment to update my share, and we'll rock on. All right, and then, all right, so first off, let's talk about the color coding that we're seeing in here. If we have this light orange color, that is a recommendation by staff to repeal the existing amendment. The only reason to repeal the existing amendment is that the model code language has the same regulatory effect as our amendment, or it's exactly the same as our amendment moving forward. A recommendation to modify the existing amendment will be a green block in here, and that will be primarily to incorporate new model code language or movement in there. And then anything that's in a blue block for the recommendation is to keep the amendment as is, primarily because there is no model code language change. And so we'll move on from there. So the first section here is our preface section. This is covering WAC 5151 001 through 007, or sorry, 8. And this is located in the preface of the code books, and there's not a lot of change here. The big one being 5151003. We want to update from the 2021 edition to the 2024 edition and update the appendices that are pre-adopted by the council to the correct lettering as changed in the model code. So this is primarily an editorial modification, and we just need to change that. Here in 51007, one of our, in 2023, we had a emergency rule request come down to change all of the pronouns across the WAC to gender neutral terms. And we denied the petition and said that we would take on that work as part of our normal rulemaking process. So the change here is just to change his or her to their. In the implementation date, we want to change that from March 15th, 2024 to November 1 of 2026. And that completes the preface sections here. In section or chapter 1, the administrative section, the administrative sections of the code are allowed to be altered by the jurisdictions without approval from the SBCC. There are a couple changes in here. We had an opinion written for 101.2 for the scoping of the IRC. These modifications here, I don't have a specific proposal for them in 2021. I'm not sure how these got into our code, but there's been a lot of confusion over the term care facility and how it's applied in conjunction with some of the other code sections. And so on this one, my recommendation would be to return back to the model code as close as possible and really make sure that this aligns with the Washington needs for adult family homes and family home childcare, and so that we're not incurring pretty much sprinkler requirements on some of these if they are over the scoping language here. So this section definitely needs some work and will need to be discussed at the tag level.
Todd, you have your hand up.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you, Dustin. I was just going to ask, first of all, Dustin, I want to recognize how big a lift this is. So thank you for that. But I was going to ask you and Angela, what would be most helpful from us today? Do you want to go through like this and review everything so that it's been recorded, although it's been posted, or would you rather go high level and send it to the tag to review the staff recommendation?
Well, in the interest of time saving, it would be nice to not have to read through the whole thing. So I've got 58 pages here and 230 some odd pages in the next report. So to go through all of it kind of line by line will be time consuming. As we go through, and this only got posted yesterday morning, so there's not been a lot of time for anybody who's on this meeting to review this. So I'm probably the most familiar with the contents here. But I guess what I would like to do is to go over the sections that are recommending some modifications to our existing amendments, and then just review the significant changes report in a high level, in just kind of get those moved up to the council and back down to the tag officially, so we can digest this and get some good work out of it.
Okay, because the action we're going to take next week is to push these all down, right, along with the amendments.
Yeah, that is the intended movement of this one, is to move it back down to the tag.
Okay, so I see. So you'd like to kind of flag a few things. Council's going to look at it all and take the whole package down. And Angela, is that anything other requests there?
No, that works for me.
Okay, now remind me, Dustin, and I'm trying to go through it, and I'm just forgetting in RCW policies, does this have to go to the council or can this body move these down to the tag?
So the way our RCW and policies section reads is that the committee shall approve the reports to the council. It doesn't specifically say that the tag needs to do work on these or anything like that, but the contents here does require some technical input, and it shouldn't come just from staff.
Yeah, and that's my memory too. So technically today we are reviewing this, but because we put together this through the staff, there's an ask to bring it down to the tag for a review back up to this committee before the council would officially accept it.
Yes.
So are you saying we're not sending it to the council? We're doing this today, and then you're sending it down to the tag, who will then do their work, and then it will go to the council for approval. I mean, that might make sense.
Yeah, and this should be looked at alongside the proposals that come back down after next week's meeting.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and I guess if people are confused, I mean, trust your instincts, but what we're doing here a little differently this time is Dustin and staff took the heavy lift of doing these revisions rather than the tag helping, and in the past, like in group one for the IBC, for example, the tag did a heavy lift and made a bunch of recommendations. Dustin and staff put that all together, brought it up to the BFRW, and the BFRW made the recommendation to the SBC to take action to accept them. That's the terminology, is that the council has accepted those reports. I'm wondering if we need to just, as a committee, if we're allowed to move this straight down to the tag, get the tag's eyes on it, and then bring it back up to the committee.
I
But I
think
need
that is
the
allowable.
RCW or policies, if that's allowed.
I think that that's allowed as long as the committee does a final approval on this before recommending to the council.
Patrick?
What's your deadline to have all of the IRC code changes done and approved by the council? And then when do you have to file the CR 102 with the code revisor to get it published ahead of the hearing? What's your deadline for that?
Well, as far as ahead of the hearing is 2 months. So I need to go back and so we're already out of sync with the schedule that was most recently published. And I believe that it says July 11th is when we were trying to get all that done and have this done by this council meeting. That's not going to happen. And so I need to make sure and see if we can meet the timeline to come in by December 1 on these at all at this point.
Okay. So I guess I'm gonna ask Todd, are you suggesting that the action we take is send it directly to the tag?
Yeah, and I thought maybe we just take a minute here, and can you hear me? I thought we'd take a minute here and just make sure we all understand where in RCW or WAC this process is, and just so and if that's a possibility, that could be a recommendation. Just take it down to the tag. Let's get everybody's eyes on it, and then bring that back to the BFRW while the tag is also considering petitions.
I'm gonna suggest that that's the path forward. If you guys, while Dustin is going through these, can you double check, look at the RCWs and see if you do a review and see if you think that's a doable path?
Yeah, I can do that now, but unless Dustin or others know that.
I
Or that-
would be confident that that's an allowable action by this group. So the RCW says that these reports must be approved by the committee in to the council. So if we're not approving it to the council, the committee can refer it down to the tag and then bring it back up.
Yeah,
Okay.
because we're not ready to approve today. Obviously,
Yeah.
we want to take staff recommendations, get the tag recommendations, bring it back up and recommend to the council.
Okay.
All right, so if we're going as high level as possible to save some time, I'm gonna just go through the ones that I'm recommending some modification on. And so we'll be looking at boxes that have green or the light colored orange in there to stop and look at this one. So we have some confusion over 101.2. We have an interpretation out on this one that was issued earlier this year, and it would be good to kind of align our amendment in this section with that interpretation to reduce that confusion. And you know, like I said, the modification here, I don't have a proposal for, and I'm not sure how this made it into the IRC in our last go around, but it is there in WAC, and so it needs some work. Looking at 102.5, I would recommend modifying the existing amendment in an editorial way to update our appendices that we have modifications to, and just update the lettering there to be the correct letters. Scrolling through, we have some other amendments in chapter 1, but I don't recommend any modification to those. In chapter 2, we have several definitions that we've got amended. I don't have a ton of recommendations here. Looking at the definition for dwelling unit, there's some new model code language. They just add for the definition applicable in chapter 24, which is the fuel gas code chapter. They have a specific definition in there as well. And so my recommendation is just to incorporate that new model language. For the definition of separation distance, we have a modification there. New model code language brings in the defined term of townhouse units, and recommend that we bring that into our modification there. Local exhaust, recommending that we repeal this existing amendment. I don't have any rationale as why this was added in our 2018 cycle, but the amendment and the model code language are substantially similar. And so if we remove our amendment there, we shouldn't have a difference in regulatory effect in the state of Washington. At lot line, I have the same thing, that we have an amendment there, but the model code language and our amendment language are substantially similar. For chapter 3, we have some amendments in here. 301.2.2.10, anchorage of water heaters. The plumbing code, I have a significant change in here that we are going to look at the significant change report for, but repeal the existing amendment in here. I do believe that they have pulled this out of the plumbing section and and so we don't need to reference the plumbing code. This is in a specific mechanical section, but we'll have to check in on the significant report for more on that one. So just looking at fire resistant construction section 302.2.2 for common walls. There's been very minor model code language change. They added the word openings in here, and looking to incorporate new model code language. So on this one for continuity, we have some new model code language for roof deck. on here. And then I had a question that the figure might be in the wrong location or numbered incorrectly to go with this. But that is a discussion topic for the tag. At 302.2.4 for parapets for townhouses, recommending to repeal the existing amendment. The WAC language is identical to the model code language in 2021. 2024. Suggest that we adopt just the model code language here. We have the same for table 302.1 for exterior walls. Model code language has the same regulatory effect as what is in our amendment in 2024 model language. I have the same thing for table 302.1, and these are footnotes in here, so the entire table is not in there. But our footnotes, we have some modifications there. And the model code language changes here look the same as our footnotes. In 302.3, excuse me, two-family dwellings, I'm recommending that we modify the amendment because the model code language is completely replaced in this one. And so I have a note to look into this one with our significant changes report. In this one for fire resistant construction 302.3.1 separation, we have some model code language added, but I am not recommending that we incorporate that into this one. And so I have this one noted for seeing the significant change report. And so I will be stopping, I guess, if I have any yellow in there as well on these. In 302.3.2, recommending that we repeal the existing amendment. We have new model code language added, and it is significantly similar to what we have going on here. And same for 302.3.3. Our model, the new model code language has the same regulatory effect as what we have going on in our state amendment. It's a slightly different though. In shared accessory rooms, 302.3.5, same thing. We have new model code language added in regulatorily similar. Same for 302.3.5.1 for opening protection, and 302.3.5.2 duct penetration, and 302.3.5.3 other penetrations, and also for our table 302.3.5. Looking at 302.13, fire protection of floors, there's a new exception added and recommending that we incorporate that exception into our existing amendment. 303.1 natural light, recommending that we repeal the existing amendment because we have new model language that is the same as this one. Looking at 303.2 for adjoining rooms, this section is removed in the 2024 language, and so we need to look at this one to modify and see if we still need this particular amendment or modify it to look at the removed language. In 303.9, require glazed openings, recommending to repeal the existing amendment. And in the model code, this one is combined with section 325.1.1 for natural light. And so they kind of cover this in the new section, or in the combined section, sorry. In 307.1, recommending that we modify the existing amendment. In some of our other codes, we have not specifically referenced the exact code referenced sections. And so my recommendation here is to modify this one to just reference the state plumbing code and remove the section 402.5. That way, in future modifications, we don't have to track these section movements across the different codes there. In 309.6, electric vehicle charging, there's some new model code language shown in blue there, suggest incorporating the new model code language. In 310.1, emergency escape and rescue openings required. Looking to recommending that we incorporate the new model code language to this section. In 311.4, vertical egress, recommending incorporating new model code language. 314.1.1 listings. They add the terminology and labeled in there, and recommending that we modify our amendment to incorporate that model code language. For 314.3 is location of smoke alarms. They instead of it being just loft, it's now sleeping loft in the code, and recommending that we incorporate that model code language change. 324.4 rooftop mounted photovoltaic systems. I'm suggesting that we remove the reference to R907. I'd have to go back in on this one to know specifically there. I don't have a good note in here to justify that one. But I do believe they've changed the photovoltaic section in the code there. In 327.1, the general for swimming pools, spas, and hot tubs, recommending modify, removing the reference to the 2021 version of ISPSC, the International Swimming Pool and Spa Code. In 328.2, equipment listings, I'm suggesting we add energy storage systems back to the code section. This one for adult family homes, section 330.2 reserved, isn't needed to be included in the WAC. If we're going to reserve something, we reserve the WAC numbers, not specific code sections. And here I have some movement of these code sections for family home childcare and adult family home. There's some new sections in the IRC, so I've got some target locations for these amendments, so editorial changes. For 3.3 sleeping lofts, they've got movement there, and they've included sleeping in front of the term loft for these. So repeal the existing amendment because we have a new model code language that reads significantly similar to all of these sections for sleeping lofts. For 403, or that brings us to chapter 4 for foundations, section 403.1.1 minimum size, recommending we incorporate some new model code language there, adding crushed stone footings for cast in place concrete foundations. All the rest of the amendments in chapter 4, recommending that we keep those. Chapter 5, floors. For 507.4 deck posts, I'm recommending that we remove the amendment. It's the same as the new model code language. 507.5, incorporating some new model code language there. For 507.6 deck joists, recommending to repeal the existing amendment because it's the same as the new model code language. Same for 507.9.1.2 band joist details. It's the same as the new language. And the remaining amendments in chapter 5, recommending keep those. So they're unique for Washington. Brings us to chapter 6. All the amendments in chapter 6 recommending to retain as drafted. Chapter 7, wall coverings in 703.1.1 water resistance. New model code language, the change is resistant to resistive. Other than that, keep that amendment the same. Chapter 8, we have no amendments in chapter 8. Chapter 9, roof assemblies. I have a note in here to just verify that the sections of the UPC are accurate or just reference the state plumbing code. Chapter 10, chimneys and fireplaces. Recommending keeping all of the amendments in chapter 10 the same. There are some little movement in some of these sections. I guess those are the same numbers. Chapter 11, energy efficiency. We don't adopt this chapter per 51.51.003. We use the residential energy code. And so we have that as a not adopted chapter. Chapter 12 for mechanical administration, recommending keeping all the existing amendments the same. For chapter 13, anchorage of appliances, they have some new model code language, and I wanted to verify that the section of the UPC is accurate or just reference the UPC. In chapter 14, water heating and cooling equipment and appliances, just a recommendation to verify the UPC reference is accurate. And then we get to chapter 15, exhaust systems. In 1503.5, recommend incorporating the new model code language changes. In 1504.3, exhaust openings, I have a recommendation to incorporate the new model code language. Now, 1505.4.4, local exhaust rates, a recommendation to incorporate new model code language. Brings us to chapter 17, combustion air. The one amendment in that chapter, have a recommendation to keep that one. Chapter 18, we have no existing amendments. Same for chapter 19, no existing amendments. Chapter 20, recommending keeping all the amendments for chapter 20 the same. Chapter 21, hydronic piping, recommending to maintain those amendments as well. It looks like we got some plumbing code references. Might just verify that the plumbing code references are accurate. Chapter 22, special piping and storage systems. We have no existing amendments in this chapter. Chapter 23, solar thermal energy systems. Recommending keeping all of our existing amendments there. Chapter 24 for fuel gas, we have no existing amendments. Chapter 25 through, let's see, chapter 25 through 28, we don't adopt per 51.003. Chapter 29, we also don't adopt, but we have an amendment in the section anyway, because of our special appendix for dwelling unit sprinkler systems. We reference back to 2904.1.1 and recommending we keep that amendment the same. And then chapter 30 through 44, we don't adopt. This is the electrical. We have the remaining plumbing sections, and then we get into the electrical section of the code. And electrical is regulated through the Department of Labor and Industries, WAC 296.46B, or not dot, but dash 46B. In chapter 44, we have the reference standards sections. For the ANCE, My recommendation is to update to the newest standard. It is not included in the model 2024 code though, so this is something for discussion if that's appropriate to update to the most current one. For the American National Standards Institute, we have a modify our existing amendment there to update to the most current standard. For the rest of those reference standards, the recommendation is to keep the amendments as is. Chapter 45 is a chapter added by Washington. It brings an appendix into the main body of the code. So this is all specific. There's not a chapter 45 in the model code, and the recommendation is to keep the existing amendments in this chapter. And then we get to the different appendices. I'm going to glaze over the ones that we don't adopt and just go to the ones that we do adopt. In Appendix AF, radon control, we are mainly keeping the amendments, except for we have a location change. It's going to be Appendix BE in the 2024 code. Skipping over some more, Appendix AQ, tiny houses. We'll move from Appendix AQ to Appendix BB in the 2024 code. And I have a note here to modify the AQ 106 energy conservation section not adopted. I have to go back and review what I have here on some notes that I don't have as part of this one, and what the modification would be. Appendix AT, solar ready provisions for detached 1 and 2 family dwellings and townhouses. AT 102.1, recommending repeal the existing amendment. This is included in the WAC for clarity, but this section is no longer included in the model text. So I'm recommending that we remove this amendment. The remaining amendments in this solar ready provisions appendix, recommending we retain. For Appendix AWU, dwelling unit fire sprinkler systems, this is a Washington specific appendix that we've created, and recommending we keep the amendments the same. And there's a suggestion to renumber the appendix from AWU to fit within the publication, and I don't have a specific suggestion on that one just yet. Appendix AWV for fire sprinklers, recommending keeping this appendix as amended by Washington and renumber to fit the new text. Appendix AWY, construction and demolition material management, keeping this one the same. Appendix AWZ, building deconstruction, recommendation is to keep that appendix as adopted by Washington currently. And that brings us to the end of the existing amendments report. And so I hope to take this back to the tag and get some input on the recommendations there and follow up with that. And so with that, is somebody gonna?
No, I was just gonna ask if there were any questions. Todd?
No, thank you. Well done, first of all. Okay, so we don't necessarily need to go through the significant changes, do we? In the same way?
Not necessarily. I mean, I can scroll through it, and then if anybody has anything they'd like to talk about, we don't necessarily have to go through it.
Maybe I'm recommending we don't need to scroll through it unless anyone has any specific questions. It's obviously it's much lengthier, right? And this is the key one, the existing amendments. I guess the question I have is then, Angela, since you'll be reviewing these at the same time as the petitions, and do we have a kind of a feel for the petitions yet on how many of them were off the existing amendments and how many are off any significant changes in the code?
I don't have a response on that one that does what we have around 30 petitions right now. And while working with this, you know, so it's not a huge amount, but it's less than what we had for the building code. And so but I don't know which ones of these are actually, which petitions we received are referencing existing
Okay.
amendment sections or model code.
No, I didn't
change.
mean to spring that on you. I was just maybe
All right.
curious if you or others have kind of a characterization of knowing the significant changes that have been published. Anything that really needs to be flagged that's of concern.
Todd, I just am gonna say I agree with you because I believe we're required by RCW to adopt the new model code. And the reason we are doing the significant changes table is to flag that for everybody, so that they can compare them to existing amendments and potentially make recommendations to.
Correct, Roger. Yep. So our WAC, and I believe it's 54, 5104-020 is the one that's going to guides us on this process. And so what we're doing here is we're now asking the tag in that column next to the staff recommendations is to go through this. And then they will review the external petitions, but they'll also make internal proposed amendments. But these reports do need to stand alone and be moved forward by this committee and then accepted or adopted by the council.
Okay.
They need to go to the tag first in this case.
So Todd, you're suggesting that we don't need to go through the significant changes and we've gone through the amendments report. So are we then ready for a motion to move this down to the tag?
Well, it was a question if Dustin or others want to flag anything in the significant changes.
Yeah.
There's one thing I want to flag in the significant changes report, and let me pull it up. And I gotta update my share 1 second. Okay, so you'll see in this one, I have for the most part in chapter 1, I don't have a lot of cost associated with this one, and anything in the definition section I'm considering as not bringing cost to the code, as it's just kind of clarifying the definition of the terms used elsewhere. But in here, as we get into chapter 3, I'm trying to highlight the cost as accepted by the ICC. So here we go. So for example, figure 301.2.2 ultimate design wind speeds. This proposal brings with it some cost. And I've linked to the documents that show the proposals. There's not a ton of information on them as far as, you know, why these do increase or decrease cost. But what I wanted to point out is if it says no in there, on the proposal accepted by ICC, they're saying that it doesn't increase or decrease. If there's an increase indicated or a decrease indicated, I've linked to the appropriate document. It's not going to take you direct to this proposal RB35-22. Let me get that one opened up here. And this takes you to the monographs for the specific, like this one in particular is the Group B monograph, and you would do a control or do a find text document to find that specific proposal in there. And so let me change my screen share one more time. And so actually we're looking for RB35-22. So control F, RB3. It pops it in here. And of course, this one links to this one, and it's only mentioned in this list here. I'd have to find a different one in here, but I'm trying to give people the resources they need to see why I've got these increase or decreases in here. And it's possible I have these a little wrong. This is one of the main components of taking me a little bit more time to get this out to everybody. 6-9.
Angela, you got a question?
I was just gonna make a comment, but if your links aren't doing what you want, if you let me know which proposals you want, I can go into CDP Access and I can extract, or I actually probably have the monographs and things still, that I can extract those documents and send them to you.
Well, I have access to them as well, but for some of these that I found in here, when I'm using the well, not the CDP Access site, but I'm using the codes subscription that they have, they will give me the proposal number, but then some of these I did struggle to find the actual proposal in the monograph itself, other than a listing. So what I can do is go through these and shoot you a request on some of these that I'm struggling with, and we can get them cleaned up.
Anything that makes it easier for you, just let me know.
Okay, I appreciate it. But for the most part, these don't go direct to the specific proposal. You're gonna have to search the document for the proposal inside there is mainly what I wanted to point out. So we have a text of what's inside the monograph here, and then it's this one's a 20-page document, but there's there's different links in here for some of these different texts. This is really what I want to point out.
Okay. Justin, are there more?
There's nothing else that I wanted to point out on this one. So if we're gonna move this down to the tag, we'll be doing some work, and then we'll see probably some modifications within this document when it comes back to this committee.
Okay, so I think that we are ready to have a motion to accept the reports and move them down to the tag. For their
Not to accept.
Not to accept yet.
okay. Todd, can you make a motion?
Yep, I think the proper motion is that, I think Ken has a comment though, maybe I'll just, if you'd like to hear that first, Chair.
Yeah, yes, Ken, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to make sure you guys were opening up to public comment, and since it was noted for public comment, and I just wanted, my public comment is, thank you very much, Dustin, for doing this. And your links do work on some of them, like the RB 157, connection for the 330.4 on the significant changes report. It works. It gets you to the right document, so that it'll just be a little cleanup. And I know Angela, said she would help out, but that could be some tag work there. But yeah, I just want to make sure you guys open it up for public comment, since I believe that was checked on the agenda. So thanks everybody. Good job, Justin, on this.
Thank you, Ken.
Yes, I will very specifically ask if there are any public comments. I was actually thinking it was open for everybody. That's kind of how we've been doing the meeting, but Patrick, go ahead.
Well, I'll say thank you to Todd for pushing this down to the tag. I was going to be very concerned that this was going to be forwarded to the council and approved with, these are very large documents, and getting them about 24 hours in advance, just not having time to go through everything. And then the tag also not having been able to provide input yet. So I'm glad it's going down to the tag for further review. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? And then Todd, I think go ahead and make your.
Okay, and thank you, Patrick, for acknowledging that, because and really the thanks goes to Dustin here, because this is a heavy lift to give a staff recommendation and do a lot of the work up front, and then get the tag to weigh in. So okay, I think the proper motion then, is that to move the BFRW, moves the existing amendments and the significant changes reports down to the IRC tag for review and recommendation.
Second, Angela.
Thanks, Angela. I have one comment, question, or I guess that's a note to Angela. I don't use the IRC very often. The one big change in the IBC was the snow loading, how it's calculated.
We have a proposal for that.
Okay, I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure Josh Mergens is on the IRC tag, and he's the one that worked through that for the IBC, so I would make sure that we are addressing how that changes and just be aware of it, so. That's my only comment. Is there any other discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, the motion passes. Next agenda item is other business. Is there any other business? Patrick?
Just for your information, I went and looked at the code reviser's publication schedule. And in order to get a CR 102 published in advance for hearings October 7th and October 9th, which are currently scheduled for the group 2 hearings, you would have to get the CR 102 filed by noon, August 6th. So I'm assuming that that's not going to happen. If the council were to move the hearings to be on or after 10/27, then you have until August 26th. That could theoretically be possible, but I'm just going to note that this is a very, very tight timeline for the tag to have basically 2 weeks to, after the council, I assume, is going to forward everything, all the petitions down to the tag. They're going to have 2 weeks to get everything done and send it back for the council to approve. And then staff is going to have 2 weeks to file, to prepare the CR 102, including the small business economic impact statement. So it might be necessary for the council to change the schedule for the hearing dates next week.
Thank you. Patrick? Any other? The only thing I've been trying to do at under other businesses to make sure to, because we are bouncing around on meetings and trying to get things done, trying to confirm with everybody when the next meeting is, and I have us down for an August 8th BFRW meeting. That's what I have on my calendar. I'm not saying that's the official, but it is a week. Dustin, maybe I am incorrect here, and I guess I should go to this SBC website to confirm. I have the August 15th council meeting and a August 8th BFRW meeting. Are those currently?
That's correct with our schedule that's published right now.
Okay. So we do have an August 8th meeting scheduled. I want everybody to be aware I will be out that day. So assuming the meeting happens, we'll need to get a alternate chair to one meeting. Okay. Is there any other additional business? Ken, go ahead.
Just wondering, anybody know the projected dates for the tag meeting for the IRC? Somebody can block out on calendars now.
Well, now that we're at the point we're at now, I'll be working with Angela and get those out to folks ASAP.
Okay, thanks.
Did we actually vote on the motion?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I just blacked out. Sorry.
Did you vote yes?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, obviously. I just forgot
Okay.
evidently.
All right. All right, well, With that, thank you, everybody. There will be a meeting. Currently, there's a meeting for the August 8th. And with that, our meeting is adjourned.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.